السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with the book الدروس المهمة لعامة الأمة, the important lessons for the entire Ummah by Sheikh Ibn Baz rahimahullah, in the subject of the fiqh of worship. And last time we had the 9th lesson, was about bayan at-tashahhud, the tashahhud in the salah, and the explanation of it and some of the rulings related to at-tashahhud. And today, inshallah ta'ala, briefly, we'll go through the 10th lesson, which is titled Sunan as-Salah. Sunan as-Salah. Sunan, if it's in the subject of fiqh, refers to the recommended acts in the salah. And recommended, mustahab, that means if a person does it, he get rewards for it. If he doesn't do it, there's no sin upon the person. But when it says no sin on the person, it doesn't mean that the person would not do it, but rather we would do it. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, when they learned the salah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said to them alayhi salatu wasalam, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Pray in the same manner that you saw me praying. So they would imitate the Prophet ﷺ in everything that they saw from him. So they would do it all from the beginning to the end, with its pillars and wajib and obligations and recommended acts and so on. So the significance of learning these classifications of what's a pillar and what's a wajib and what's sunan mustahab is that if a person misses something, does he have to make sujood al-sahw? Does the salah valid? Things of that nature. Not to learn it so that we leave it. Some people, some knowledge is not a good thing for them, because if they know that this is something only recommended, they'll start not giving it its importance. And we shouldn't be like that. We should do the best we can to perfect our salah. But in case if a person misses something, then if it's mustahab, if it's from the sunan, there is nothing to be done if a person misses it. So what are these sunan? He says sunan al-salati wa minha, the recommended acts in the salah, and from these sunan. And then there are maybe 16 sunan here mentioned. The first one from the order of the salah from the beginning is al-istiftah. Al-istiftah comes from fataha, opening. So opening the opening of the salah, which is the dua to be said after the takbir. We know that Takbiratul Ihram is a pillar. After saying Allahu Akbar, which is a pillar, then it's from the Sunnah. It's recommended before reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, which is another pillar, is to say some of the dua that has been reported from the Prophet ﷺ that used to say before reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, Subhanaka Allahumma Rabbana wa bihamdik, and the like of this. Or Allahumma ba'id bayni wa bayna khatayai, or inni wajjahtu wajhiya وجهت وجهي الذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا. And there are so many ad'iyah, du'as that are authentic and reported from the Prophet ﷺ. So we should do the best we can to learn one or more, and you can do more than one at the same time. Of course, if you're imam, or it's clear. If you're a ma'mum, you also say it when the imam is silent after saying Allahu Akbar. And if the imam keep on silent, you can do more than one. Or if you're alone, you can do one or more. And the meanings of it and what should be in the hearts of the believers, this is something that we need to reflect upon and we need to learn. But since the objective of this is to be brief, so we'll keep it to another sessions, inshallah ta'ala. But we need to learn definitely these ad'iyah, these du'as, and to make sure that it become part of our hearts, and especially when a person says وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِي الَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, I turn my face to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the initiator, the creator of the heavens and the earth, and so on. So if a person is like this, then how can his heart divert away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by not having the devotion and the khushu'? So to get all of one's senses and the devotion in the salah. So the first one is al-istiftah. The second one, he said جعل كف اليد اليمنى على اليسرى فوق الصدر حين القيام قبل الركوع وبعده. to have the kaf. Al-kaf is the palm of the right hand on the left hand above the chest. That means not above, like, that means on the chest. That's fawq means, not above, but on the chest. حين القيام, when a person is standing. Before the ruku' and after the ruku'. Before the ruku' and after the ruku'. And this is something that the Sheikh Rahimahullah took that opinion, that as long as the person is standing, then to put the right on the left on the chest in the salah. And there's a hadith about the putting the right on the left, of course, which is well known, and on the chest is also reported by Imam Malik and others. So, and before the ruku' is very obvious when a person is standing. After ruku' there's differences of opinions whether to put them or not. So this is the second one, the right on the left on the chest. The third one, رفع اليدين, and what it's meant by the chest is not that you put it all the way on top before the throat, but rather is like your arm versus your forearm is like a 90 degrees, where it's just a normal standing, where the palm here is put, and not that some people, when they do, they kind of fold their hands and they hold their elbows. No, it's just to put the palm on the palm, or you can grab your wrist. You can grab the left wrist with the right palm or with the right hand, or just put the palm on the palm. The third one, رفع اليدين مضمومتي الأصابع, to raise the hands, both hands, مضمومتي الأصابع, ممدودة. مضمومتي, this is in the dual tense because you talked about the two hands. And مضمومة from الضم, that means it's not opened. The fingers are not wide open, it's just closed. مضمومتي الأصابع ممدودة. ممدودة, that means stretched, not bent. Stretched. حذو المنكبين, right by the shoulder. أو الأذنين, or by the ears. And حذو is not touching, but rather to face the qibla with your palm, and the fingers are, not bent, and the hands and the fingers are not widespread, they're just closed. And whether it's to be by in front of the shoulders, or you can do it higher by the ears. عند التكبير الأول, this is by the first takbir, and عند الركوع, and before going to the ركوع, والرفع منه, and coming up from ركوع, وعند القيام من التشهد الأول إلى الثالثة, and when coming up from the first tashahud to the third rak'ah. So now we have 4 places or 4 times where we raise both hands with the palm facing the qibla, and the fingers are extended, stretched, and it's closed. And that is for the first takbir, which is a very obvious one. And before the ruku', after the ruku', coming up from ruku', and the fourth one after getting up from the first tashahud, if the salah is 3 or 4 rak'ah, is also to do the same thing. So this is the second, or this is the third sunan of sunan as-salah. Number 4, ما زاد عن واحدة في تسبيح الركوع والسجود. And I'm being brief here without getting into so much details, because this is what is meant to be at that level. Number 4 is ما زاد عن واحدة. واحدة in the tasbih, in the ruku' and the sujood, what is obligatory is 1. So to do more than 1, this is recommended. And some said 3. So that's why the adna al-kamal, as they say, 3. So the least perfect state is to do 3 or more. But 1 is sufficient for the person to be saved from having to do sujood al-sahw. So to do more than 1, which is recommended, of course, in the ruku' and in the sujood, the tasbih in the ruku' and the tasbih in the sujood, to do more than 1. Number 5, ما زاد على قول ربنا ولك الحمد. When coming up from the ruku', we say ربنا ولك الحمد. And to do more or to say more, this is recommended. To say ربنا ولك الحمد, this is obligation, this is wajib. So after saying ربنا ولك الحمد, then you can say حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه, and you can even go ahead and continue ملء السماوات والأرض أحق ما قال عبد وكلنا لك عبد اللهم لا مانع لما أعطيت ولا معطي لما منعت ولا ينفع ذا الجد منك الجد. Or if you say ربنا ولك الحمد only, this is sufficient. You can learn that from the books of the Adhkar. And if you're a ma'moom and you have time to say it, if you don't, then you follow the imam. If you're imam and you say it, that's fine. If you're a munfarid praying alone, you say it, mashallah, this is good. But more than ربنا ولك الحمد is recommended. وما زاد عن واحدة also وما زاد عن واحدة في الدعاء بالمغفرة بين السجدتين. بين السجدتين, between the two sajda, we say رب اغفر لي رب اغفر لي. So if you say it once, this is sufficient, but you do more, this is recommended. And you keep on saying it as long as you're sitting between the two sajda, as long as the imam did not make sujood, or if you're praying alone, you can say it more and more. ربنا أو رب اغفر لي رب اغفر لي رب اغفر لي, and you can repeat it like this. Number 6, جعل الرأس حيال الظهر في الركوع. To make the head, الرأس, حيال. حيال is in the same level or with the same level of the back in the ruku', right? So the back is straight and the face, or I'm sorry, the head is in the same level. It's not going up or going down. It's not like you're not lowering it more for your shin to touch your chest, for example, or you're not raising your head to make it as if there's a, your back is straight and then it goes up in the head. No, the head is the same level. If you pass the hand on the back, it goes in the same level when it comes to the head. So the head is in the same level with the back. And looking down, straight down in ruku'. Some people, they kind of raise their head so that they look at the sujood. No, to make it straight and to look straight down. Number 7, he said مجافاة العضدين عن الجنبين والبطن عن الفخذين والفخذين عن الساقين في السجود. This is in sujood, is that each organ is separated from the rest of the body. So al-adudaini is the arms are not touching the sides of the person. So your arms are not touching your sides when you're in sujood. To widen the arms from the side, unless a person is ma'moom, and that would harm the people next to him, and they're supposed to be together. So if you're imam, you do this. If you're alone, you do this. So mujafatul adudaini, the two arms to be away from the sides. Also al-batn, the stomach, to be not touching al-fakhidaini, or the two thighs of the person. When the person is making sujood, very, kind of not stretching himself in the proper easy way of the sujood, making the stomach touches the thighs, the legs. This is not permissible. But again, this is the recommended, so that it's not touching. I'm sorry, it's recommended so that it doesn't touch. وَالْفَخِذَيْنِ عَنِ السَّاقَيْنِ. Also the thighs, which is above the knees, not to touch the shin. Right, so that's also, as if a person is close to sitting and he's making sujood, then some people, they think that this is how the women should make sujood. No, but yes, the sujood of the woman should not be like, making wide space between her arms and things like this. So to separate these things so that, a person is not kind of crunching up himself in sujood. Number 8, رفع الذراعين عن الأرض حين السجود. To raise the arms from the ground while making sujood. To put your arms on the ground. The Prophet ﷺ forbid making sujood like the dogs. So the arms has to be not touching the grounds. Number 9, جلوس المصلي على رجليه اليسرى مفروشة ونصب اليمنى في التشهد الأول وبين السجدتين. Now the sitting, which is recommended way to sit in the salah, if a person is in the first tashahhud or between the two sajda, or praying 2 rak'ah in the tashahhud of the 2 rak'ah, is to sit على رجله اليسرى, to sit on the left foot. مفروشة, that means it's on the ground. You sit on it. It's not erected, it's not straight up, but rather you sit on it. وَنَصْبُ الْيُمْنَى, nasb, that means you erect the right foot with the toes of the right foot facing the Qibla. So the toes on the ground. So this well-known jilsa, which is al-iftirash, because you sat on the left foot and you made the right foot erected with the toes facing the qibla. This is in the first tashahhud between the sajdatain and after and if the tashahhud of the two rak'ah. Then number 10 is a tawarruk. And of course, these things, it's best to be taught when a person sees it, because that's what the Prophet ﷺ did, and that's how they learned. At-tawarruk comes from al-wirkan, which is the thigh of a person. At-tawarruk means, and this is في التشهد الأخير, in the last tashahhud, في الرباعية والثلاثية, if the salah is 4 or 3 rak'ah. If it's 2, then you don't sit for at-tawarruk. You sit in the same way that we mentioned earlier. If it's 4 rak'ah or 3 rak'ah, and there's space, of course, because the ma'mum might not have enough space to do at-tawarruk. What is at-tawarruk? Al-julus ala miq'adatihi. To sit on one's back, one's behind, the left one. وَجَعْلُ رِجْلِهِ الْيُسْرَى تَحْتَ الْيُمْنَى. And to make the left foot under or the left legs under the right. وَنَصْبِ الْيُمْنَى. And to make the right foot as the iftirash, erected with the toes facing the qibla, which is at-tawarruk. And it's supposed to not to take a bigger space than a iftirash, but sometimes, because we're not very flexible, sometimes we kind of look funny. But at-tawarruk, this is how at-tawarruk is. And hopefully, it's you can picture that, or hopefully everyone knows exactly how to do it, or to learn how to do it, inshallah. Number 11, الإشارة بالسبابة في التشهد الأول والثاني من حين جلس إلى نهاية التشهد وتحريكها عند الدعاء. To point with a sababa, which is the forefinger, in the first tashahhud and the second tashahhud, from the moment that he sits for the tashahhud till the end of the tashahhud, till you finish the tashahhud, not just when you say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna muhammadan rasulullah. You just point with the forefinger from the beginning to the end of the tashahhud, and to move it while you're making dua. And to move it while you're making dua, or when you mention the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This, of course, these things has very differences of opinions, but this is, what is to be the most authentic according to the Sheikh, and things like this. So to point with the forefinger, okay? And to move it, whether to keep it straight without moving it, that's fine, or to move it when you're making dua or when the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned. Number 12, الصلاة والتبريك على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وآل محمد وعلى إبراهيم وآل إبراهيم في التشهد الأول. To make salah and salam on the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على محمد, والتبريك is to say وبارك. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك. To ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the barakah. And this is in the first tashahhud. It's recommended in the first tashahhud. If you have time, say the salah on the Prophet ﷺ in the first tashahhud. It is not mandatory, but it's recommended. Number 13, ad-du'a fi tashahhud al-akhir, to make dua in the last tashahhud, after the tashahhud and before the salam. And this is one of the very virtuous time to make dua. And if people sometimes complain that the imam is staying long, it's good. It's good time to make dua after the tashahhud, before the salam. And especially about the 4 things that the Prophet ﷺ taught his ummah, to seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the punishment of the grave, from the punishment of the fire, from the fitna of this life and the death, and the fitna of al-Masih al-Dajjal. Number 14, and other du'as, of course. Number 14, al-jahru bil-qira'ati fi salat al-fajr wa salat al-jumu'ah. Al-jahr, to recite loud in salat al-fajr, in salat al-jumu'ah, in salat al-eidain, in Eid salah, wal-istisqa, in the salah for rain, وفي الركعتين الأوليين, and in the first 2 rak'ah من صلاة المغرب والعشاء. So Maghrib and Isha, the first 2 rak'ah is to recite loud, and this is for the imam, of course, and for the mu'mum it's recommended as long as the person is not disturbing others. But say if the imam did not recite loud in Salatul Fajr and so on, the salah is valid, but of course nobody would do this, because that's the way the Prophet ﷺ is to always to recite loud. Number 15, and for women is to recite to themselves, of course, if they're praying alone. Number 15 الإصرار بالقراءة في الظهر والعصر وفي الثالثة من المغرب والأخيرتين من العشاء. الإصرار is to silently recite in ظهر and عصر and the third rak'ah of Maghrib and the last rak'ah of Al-Isha. And الإصرار is to be silent, but you have to have the tongue moving and your vocal cords are moving without making the one next to you hear what you're saying. Number 16 قراءة ما زاد عن الفاتحة من القرآن. To recite more than الفاتحة, to recite more from the Quran, that is not just the Fatiha but more, other surahs, other verses, مع مراعاة بقية ما ورد من السنن في الصلاة سوى ما ذكرنا. And he says, and more of what we just mentioned of the Sunan, there are more than that. ما زاد على قول المصلي ربنا ولك الحمد, to say more of the Musalli saying ربنا ولك الحمد بعد الرفع من الركوع, after coming up from the ركوع, for the Imam and the Ma'mum and the Munfarid, because فإنه سنة. All of them, it's sunnah for them. Also ومن ذلك from these sunan أيضا وضع اليدين على الركبتين مفرجتي الأصابع حين الركوع. You put your hands on your knees when you're making ruku'. You put your palm on your knees and your fingers are wide open, wide in ruku' on your shin. So this is here the fingers are wide open. When you're raising your hands for the takbir, the fingers are closed up. So these are the sunan that he mentioned, 16 from the beginning to the end of the salah, and it's definitely recommended and to follow the way the Prophet ﷺ in this. After that, the next lesson is about mubtilat al-salah, what invalidates the salah. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who listen and follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.